Hi, I'm Lars.
And I'm James.
And we're Vinny Fab. And today we're going to show you a step-by-step guide on our FD Rx7 bolt-in V-mount kit. Hey guys, Lars here from Vinny Fab. We thought we would show you guys a step-by-step instructions on how to install our FD Rx7 V-mount kit. We know how painful it is trying to follow paper instructions, so we thought we would do a YouTube video to show you guys how to do it step by step, hopefully making your life a lot less stressful and easier to figure it all out. So we'll get into it and we'll show you how to install it all. So we wanted to bag and tag every single nut and bolt, hose clamp, mount, every single item, and then we'll show you where that part is required for the install, just to make this process a lot less painful. So here we have everything bagged and tagged, nut and bolt, all the single items, to hopefully make everyone's life real easy.
First step for our V-mount install is chucking in our Ast Tanks. Need our hose clamps, Ast Tank bolts, 5mm Allen key and 8mm socket for the hose clamps. So we start by chucking our silicone joiner straight on the bottom of the Ast Tank. Here's with an Ultra 2040 on the joiners, makes them nice and slippery and easy to go on. Chuck this guy on, and the smaller of the two bits of straight go in the bottom of that joiner there. That done, ready to go in, and at the same time you can get the longer bit of straight and put him into the 45, which is for the other hose, other radiator hose. So it's now ready to go into the kit. So we'll now put our Ast tank in. Put your sensor in first, make your life a bit easier on yourself. But for this purpose we obviously don't need a sensor. A little bit of silicone obviously doesn't help, seal her up when you're putting it together. Hose in, and under here. Just leave that loose for now though, in case we need to turn it later on when we come to put the radiator in. That's that bit done.
So for this one, it is the radiator and the intercooler main support brace. So we've remade this because we wanted to run a rubber rib nut so that the radiator is not solid mounted to the car. So first off, put both the rubber rib nuts in there. Next thing, these need to face the front of the car. So next thing we put these little 4 M6 screw bolts in there. So for this one, we are going to mount the 2 12-inch fans to the radiator. So what you'll need for this one is the bag that says Radiator Fans, a magnet, and a 5mm Allen key. So the main reason we use the magnet is more so that we can sit that in like so. And we can put the bolt through. Let's get them all just finger tight first, get them all in there. Now we have our fans installed. Flip the radiator over. I'll sit on this side. Then we will install the rubber mounts. So if you look at the rubber actually tapers out slightly. So when you install it, you want to have the rubber tapering out. So once we've got that on there, we'll install a spring washer, a flat washer, and a nut onto the other side. And we'll just do it like finger tight. And same on the other side. So on this one we have the chassis to radiator brackets. So this includes 2 aluminium brackets, 10mm bolt, and a 6mm bolt. Like so. You will need a 16mm socket and a 4mm fixing. So you'll see on the chassis rail there's 2 bolts that are M10. So you want to use the back M10 bolt. So you want to have the small tab facing chassis rail. The big tab goes to the radiator. And then put that in there, finger tight. So on this side, same deal again. Second hole in, but it's an M6, not an M10 on this one. So that screws in there like so. Just put them both in finger tight so that it still move a little bit until we get the radiator in there. So we now have the radiator ready to go in the car. So you want to slide it down, put the rubber mounts in front of the brackets, like so, and hook them underneath and into the mounting tabs, like so. Let the back of it just sit in place. We've got nuts and washers all sitting on the side of the chassis rail, ready to put it in. Don't worry about putting the bolts up the back yet because the intercooler sits on that. So you get them finger tight like so, and that sits there like that. Happy days. So now because we've got the radiator installed, we've got the 2 side ductings ready to go in. For this one, you'll need the red ducting bolts. Times 2, 5mm Allen key, the 2 ducting pieces. So the ducting already got the foam tape installed on there, ready to go. So we can ensure that we don't have any air escaping out between the sides of the radiator and the ducting. So now we'll chuck in the driver's side first. So this facing up with the edging on it to sit the intercooler on.
There you go.
I wish to do it again.
America! America!
So here we have the left hand side ducting. So this is all shaped and ready to go. Foam tape to the radiator, edging up. Slide that down in there like so. Grab this one, same again, edging up, foam tape to the radiator. Slide that in there like so. So now we've got a flathead washer, a spring washer on a little M6. It's finger tight, they've got little welded bosses on the side. Sometimes I'm going to give it a little push down from the top. Just to ensure it's tight. Same deal again on this side. One finger tight. Okay. So if you can see here, we've got a little M6 bolt with a little bracket, a good little rubber that's tapering out slightly, and then an M14 on both sides. Then at the front here we have our little drain bung for the radiator. If you ever need to remove it for some reason, you want to drain all the water out or do a flush, that's in there as well. So we've got the ducting in there, we have got a foam tape down the end there, which is already installed on the radiator when you get it. We have the rubber edging, which is already installed on the ducting when you get it. We have made the hole slightly bigger, so for some reason, if you install your intercooler, the ducting doesn't sit quite against the intercooler, just loosen those bolts off, lift it up, it will seal it perfectly. We have made this kit around the air intake as well, because we've found with other kits on the market, they get real bad heat soak, I guess, from the pod filter sitting on top of the intercooler. Hot air going through the pod filter, not as good. So we've actually offset the intercooler in this kit to make a 4-inch pod filter sit down this gap, so it's getting its own direct cold air to the motor.
Right, so next up we're going to chuck on the cast elbow, start of the cooler piping setup. You can use a bit of RTV down there if you want to help seal her up against the O-ring. Put our M6 nuts here. So when you put this on, put it on, just keep all the nuts loose though, so you got that bit of movement in it. Come back and tighten everything up at the end. Next up we'll chuck our bracket onto our intercooler. Once again, just chuck it on there loosely. And then we can chuck our intercooler into the car. Just sit her in there, start on the back ones. Yeah. So these bolt the intercooler and the radiator all in one into that rubber riv nut. This is the only thing you need to weld on with this kit, or as well as the clamp to the front of the turbo. So you just weld that onto your compressor housing. Get like the fan trying to do that for you. Pretty simple, line her up with the intercooler, chuck a couple of tacks on, pull your comp cover off and weld her up. For the intake you have to cut that front ring off through there and then you weld your weld ferrule to that. And for the intercooler piping you cut it back to this ring here and weld your intercooler piping to that. We strongly advise bolting all the parts into the setup first and then checking this in the car up to the intercooler and either marking it in place or tacking it in place and then pulling it out and welding it. And you can hold it, get a friend to hold it while you put a tack on it. Good to go. Right, next is intercooler pipe. I've marked on the inside TB for throttle body, so we know where that goes, what the orientation is. You put your O-rings into the grooves that you can see in the clamps. Use some form of rubber grease. We're not going to use that today because we'll just have to clean it all off. So for the purpose of this, we will not be using grease. Pull your clamps apart. Smaller one is obviously for the turbo side. Chuck your O-rings on these, on your intercooler and your intake elbow as well. Alright, so this is how easy these clamps are to use. No tools required, chuck them on, hit the button on top of the pin and then they're done. Nice and easy. And they are available off our website vinnyfab.com. This is an optional extra with the kit, our intake, which comes with the intake pipe, clamp and air filter. To install this we just need a 8mm socket. Chuck a filter on, do up. Once again, chuck your O-rings in. We're not going to use them for this purpose because we're not going to put rubber grease on everything to clean it off. And that's it done.
So now we're going back down to our rubber mounts that hold our radiator up. We're just giving them the final tighten up. Alright, so now we've got the radiator back in place, we can go back into the chassis rail ones and just make sure they're super tight. And always remember to double check the oil at the bottom. So due to the amount of space with the radiator and the fans in there, we have to space the power steering out of the way. So this comes with in the kit. It's the aluminium tube spacer. The reason why we've gone for the bigger tube is to add a bit of stability to it. So if we run the smaller tube, it's still going to have that rocking sensation. So we're using it as a bit of a washer as well. Just like that.
Last little bit is putting the last of the radiator hoses in. Bit of 2040 to help slide it on there as it's nice and slippery. Hose clamps, there is a slight difference in this 90, there's a shorter length and a longer length. The shorter length goes to the radiator. tighten it up too tight now, but they're all tight, and tighten that top one too. Yeah, same again, 2040, or any sort of lubricant. Once again, they're slightly different. Shorter one goes to radiator, longer one up to the Ast tank. Oh, and that's all that done.
So this is the last piece of the puzzle here. This is the top cowl panel. So this seals this area up here and finishes off the ducting between the radiator and the intercooler. So we have two M6 countersunk bolts, and we're running 2 cup washers on top. And then we have 2 bits of aluminium tube. One is 3mm shorter than the other one, so just make sure of that. That is because on the front of the intercooler there is a bracket there, so the shorter one sits on that. So we actually space this off the top. So I'll show you how to do that. So we have our shorter piece of aluminium tube going on the right hand side one. So just sit that underneath, run our bolt through. We'll just start that. So you notice that the bolts are slightly longer than they need to be. That is so that when you go to install the second one, you've actually still got a little bit of movement in there, but that bolt's not going to come loose and the tube's not going to roll around. So we've got a longer bit of tube, sit it underneath, run our bolt through, and then start that in there.